Morning. My time is short, so I'm going to speak a little quickly. About 7 years ago, I was hired by General Electric to do a series of presentations, 5 of them in total, around the country where I addressed the presidents of all their companies. You may or may not know this, but GE is kind of a huge conglomerate comprising almost 120 separate companies. And one of the last acts of Jack Welch, one of the last programs he instituted on his way out, was they began to realize that there was very, very little cross-selling going on between these companies. They ran some figures and realized that the potential for increased sales was huge if they could only get these people to stop thinking about their own little turfs and begin seeing themselves as part of a larger conglomerate and corporation. First problem was, a lot of them didn't even know what a lot of the other companies sold or did or manufactured. So the first part was education. Here we have all these companies, all the way from toasters up to turbine engines to financial services. First, you have to understand who we are and what we do. The second thing was to impress upon them the value of cross-referencing. Why, if I'm selling turbine engines or air conditioners, would I even want to bother recommending the financial services? They had to recommend and show them that, as John Kennedy said, a rising tide lifts all boats, that they are part of a team, they're part of a company. And then they finally hired me. And the reason they hired me was they found that educating them, giving them the facts, the figures, the knowledge, and the programs helped, but wasn't enough. What they had to do was change their thinking. They had to start seeing themselves as a team. Make a long story short, the first year they integrated this program, they saw in excess of $100 million in additional sales because of this cross-referencing and cross-selling program. The power of team thinking can never be overestimated. And how do you integrate? How do you change your thinking? Well, the bottom line was people were very habitual, and people are creatures of habit. As a psychologist, I ascribe to the old adage, once is an accident, twice is a pattern, 3 times, and you're well on your way to forming a habit at the subconscious level. We form habitual behaviors very, very quickly. And you in DMT may see yourselves as DMT, GMS is just GMS, and of course PBMS might just be PBMS. The company is attempting to seamlessly integrate these 3 service divisions into one thinking, team acting body. Well, to change that way of thinking is a subconscious process, and it requires some of you to break out of your old habitual way of thinking. As I said before, people form habits very, very rapidly. 1, 2, 3 in many cases. I'm going to demonstrate that in the form of an old trick. Some of you may have heard this, but many of you may have not. Here's a way of demonstrating how fast we form habitual thinking at the subconscious level. It's a little trick. Listen carefully. Try not to fall for this trick. Let's see how it goes. What does J-O-K-E spell? Everyone please, what does J-O-K-E spell? What does P-O-K-E spell? What do you call the white part of an egg? No, the white part, of course, is called the albumin. It is the yellow part that's called the yolk. That's an old trick, but it shows just how fast people fall into patterns. I mean, it's remarkable. Not a bad thing. I mean, habitual thinking is a very conscious process. It's very good. It's very deliberate. It allows you to focus. But sometimes we become a little too focused. We become a little too focused on our own way of thinking, our own territory. We have trouble breaking out of that pattern of thinking. Not everybody has that problem. Some people in this culture are able to think outside of the box virtually at will. We have a name for these people. We call them visionaries. Those that are able to see the solutions that other people walk right past and don't even notice. Well, I'm in an interesting position. You folks would have no way of knowing this, but I do about 70 presentations a year all over the country. Get to meet some fascinating groups, different people like yourselves. Often, I am sitting in the audience while they're giving out awards. I get to see who gets called up, who gets identified as the high achievers. I get to see who the agent of the year, the manager of the year, the employee of the year, the president's award, the gold key award. Often, at a table, they'll sit me next to the president of the company or these rags to riches millionaires. I get to meet some fascinating people in this business. And I started interviewing them a few years ago. I wanted to know, is there a common characteristic? What are these people doing that the average producers don't do? And there's a whole series of things they do in common, but one thing stood out from my way of thinking. I believe these visionaries are hypnotizing themselves. I'm going to say that again because I know it has to sound weird. I believe high achievers and top producers, virtually without exception, are practicing some form of self-hypnosis. Now, they don't usually call it hypnosis. In fact, they rarely call it self-hypnosis, but they usually have a cute little name for it. I've heard it called my visualization process. I've heard it called my dream, my vision, autogenic training, creative visualization. Athletes call it getting and staying in the zone, getting focused. There's all different kinds of names and analogies for it, but trust me, it's all self-hypnosis. You are being called upon to change the way you think of yourself in this organization, to begin seeing yourself as a team. That is a subconscious process. It requires that you change a little picture sitting in the back of your mind right now that we psychologists call your subconscious self-image. A lot of people talk about self-image, or he or she's got this great self-image, this great self-picture. They're always going to do well in business, or he or she is always going to have a negative or a poor self-image, so they're always going to do bad. You hear people talk about it, but very few people stop and think about it. For example, if I asked you right now to look inside yourself and discover what your own subconscious self-image is, would you be able to do that? Unfortunately, that's not something we get taught in high school or college, so let me share that with you. It takes about 10 seconds. Want to know what you think you look like subconsciously? Here's how you find it. Take a moment. Try to remember the last time you took a bath or a shower. Anyone can't remember? Strange thing to ask a group such as yourself, but bear with me. Try to do it. Try to remember the last time you were taking a shower or a bath. No doubt for most of you that was just a little while ago, but when you remember that event, didn't most of you just do this? When I asked you to remember taking that shower, didn't mentally you call forth an image that included a picture of you? Isn't it like you've mentally pulled your mind outside of your body and there you are standing in that shower or sitting in that bathtub? Let me first point out that is not the way it happened. Think about it. When you were taking the shower or the bath, you were seeing things through your eyes. If you're remembering it the way it really happened, all you should be seeing right now are tiles on the wall or fixtures on the bathtub. I mean, that's the way it happened, isn't it? But it's not the way most of you remember it. Most of you have unconsciously stuck a picture of yourself in there. It's like you're outside of yourself looking at yourself. Well, where did you come from? I'll tell you where you came from. You came right out of your subconscious mind. See, that's what you think you look like in relation to the rest of the world around you. That is the essence of your subconscious self-image. And that little picture has a lot of implications. For example, if you just pulled out a picture of an overweight person, you're probably going to have a weight problem until you change that picture. And I don't care what diet you get yourself on. You can get on the world's greatest diet, drop 30, 40, 60 pounds, but if you still see yourself subconsciously as being overweight, you'll turn around and gain the weight right back again. I joke about it, I probably shouldn't, but I say people with image problems usually have at least 2 complete wardrobes in their closet. They have their fat clothes and then they have their skinny clothes. They get on these crazy diets, they'll drop 10, 20, 30 pounds, they look great, they feel great, but then they hold on to the overweight clothes because in the back of their mind, at least, they know sooner or later that's where they're going. You're being asked to see yourself as part of a team. Some of you may have already integrated that into your subconscious mind. Some of you may have no trouble saying, all right, I'm no longer just PBMS, I'm part of this broad team now. But a lot of you may have trouble doing that because for years you've been seeing yourself in a totally different way. How do you alter those pictures? Well, it turns out self-hypnosis is an excellent way of doing it. Don't let the word scare you. Turns out the average person in this room probably is already spending about 70% of their waking day in a trance anyhow. I'm just going to show you how to put it to some good use. You think I'm kidding, right? Think you don't spend a lot of your time in a trance? Let me give you some everyday examples. How many of you have ever driven right past your exit and not seen the sign? May I see the show of hands? That sign is 10 feet high. Don't even see it. Think you were fully conscious when you're doing that? Let me give you another example. How many times you pull into your driveway at the end of the day, you shut off your ignition, and you seriously have to sit there and ask yourself, how did I get here? Did I stop at that stop sign? Was that light red when I went through it? You ever have that experience? And then you get out of your car, you walk into your home, and there's a member of your family in a trance, sitting in front of that video game or trance out in front of the TV set. You talk to them, you call their name. They don't even know you're in the room. Daydreaming is by far the most common example of an everyday trance. How many times have you ever been in an office environment or wherever you look over and half the people are doing this? Staring out into space, not really seeing what they're looking at, not really hearing what's going on around them. The trance is a very common state of mind. Quite simply, I believe high achievers have tapped into that state. You've probably seen it. You walk into their office and they're locked in thought. They don't hear you walk in the room, see you tap their shoulder or make a noise, and they snap out of it and they say, I'm sorry, I was just trying to figure out how to put this deal together for my client, how to solve this problem, how to put this solution together. People can do it at will, and that is self-hypnosis.